Dream analysis. Okay, I totally believe in dream analysis. Let's see what he says here. Freud also heavily believed that dreams provide insight into unconscious desires. Yes, they do. He introduced the idea that dreams contain symbolic elements. Yes, they do. He argued that the actual events and symbols of dreams are a disguise for the hidden, repressed desires. Yeah, if you go and read the interpretation of dreams, it has some nice, there's some nice, not in the book itself, but there's nice graphs. I'll try and dig one up here. Hi, today I want to take a look at this article from Hack Spirit, 7 Teachings from Sigmund Freud that we all need to unlearn. Number 3, the primacy of sexual orientation or sexual motivation. Sex instincts, sexuality is undoubtedly essential for human life, inducing nearly all human actions and motivations to sexual desires, oversimplifies the complexity of human behavior. I tend to agree with this writer. That's why Freud's theory of primacy sexual motivation has also faced significant criticism and skepticism in modern psychology. We are now that we're motivated by complex display of biological, social, cognitive, and cultural factors. Okay, and although some people it looks spot on, yeah, I think there's a fair point there. Again, Freud was talking more about the drives rather than our idea of sexuality. So he wasn't as sexually orientated or focused as people think in the English interpretations. But yeah, psychology has moved on a lot and we're far more aware of many, many things. Sexuality has a very big effect. But I'm kind of saying that bodily functions have a big effect on human beings, more than sexuality. Unconscious motivation. Okay, so the concept of the unconscious mind remains relevant in psychology. Psychologists have criticized Freud's specific ideas about unconscious desires and conflicts for being difficult to test and well, of course. I mean, anything in psychology or psychology is basically like philosophy. It's a form of philosophy because the only psychology they can say is objective is when you test people, but you can only test people for things by first having a theory ahead of that. So, for example, we have this very popular idea of IQ, intelligence quotient. It's basically a philosophical concept, and so far psychologists have been able to back it up with empirical evidence, but there's still a lot of question marks. And to what degree is IQ really a determiner of intelligence? So you have to start with a philosophy, and then you try and do something empirical with it. And you're following Karl Popper's idea of the willingness to let go of scientific ideas for new ideas. We have to be also willing to realize that maybe, IQ, for example, as we think it is, maybe not is the case. So, yeah, so you have to start with something philosophical. So that's why there's no, let's say, proof, as it were. Yeah, it says here that this whole article boils down to the inability to test his theories. For instance, Freud's theories are often pathological normal human behaviors by attributing them to hidden sexual conflicts. Yeah, that's true. And a bunch of other psychotherapists, some people have said it's about willpower. Other people would, the Gestalt people, for example, they deny the idea of an unconscious mind, but they still talk about people deflecting experience and desensitizing themselves and so on. So you can speculate a lot about it. But I think by and large, most people will be believing that there is an unconscious mind, or we can also call a subconscious mind. Okay, then he kind of goes off this thing of oral fixation suggests that habits like nail biting or smoking could be attributed to unresolved conflicts during the oral stage. I would think there's pretty good evidence that things like nail biting and stuff are the oral stage. In other words, when the whole idea of sexual development from a Freudian point of view is you start with the oral phase, we learn to bite and chew. Then the anal stage, you're learning to control your shit, as it were. And then the phallic stage, of course. And so the oral stage, you want to bite. We see small kids bite everybody. Anal stage is where we learn to be greedy and grab. I'm holding on to my shit. And this idea of money being filthy lucre, being dirty and so on. And then we also have this, and things like anal retentivity, obsessiveness, etc. will come from this stage partly. And the phallic stage, of course, is desire to have sex. And then the limitation of that, and we do tend to see anecdotally young kids by the age of 5 or 6 being quite sexual, and then they do go into some kind of latency, or they appear to do anyway, and then they appear to kick back again in puberty. So I would certainly say things like smoking and eating, for example. Why is it so hard to go on the diet? Why is it so hard to quit smoking? It's their oral fixations, and I don't personally think there's a big issue there. I think it's pretty obvious that the first things we do is stick stuff in our mouth, and we start liking sticking things in our mouth. And then we don't want to stop sticking things in our mouth. Like one of the hardest things to do with dieting is stop sticking stuff in your mouth because it feels so good. And I think, yeah, I wouldn't agree with what he's saying there. Okay. And then he has this thing, medical labeling. It's not about abnormal. He says feeling abnormal. It's not abnormal. It's just, um, yeah, it is what it is. It's a fixation at the level of the mouth. Let's be honest here. Okay. Dream analysis. Okay. I totally believe in dream analysis. Let's see what he says here. Freud also heavily believed that dreams provide insight into unconscious desires. Yes, they do. He introduced the idea that dreams contain symbolic elements. Yes, they do. He argued that the actual events and symbols of dreams are disguised for the hidden, repressed desires. Yeah, if you go and read the interpretation of dreams, it has some nice, there's some nice, not in the book itself, but there's nice graphs. I'll try and dig one up here by theorist. And basically his idea is that we have the dream is a wish fulfillment, and that we have desires, but we don't, they need to find expression. And this is a concept which I put across in this channel sometimes, which is the idea of subpersonalities, that there's a whole bunch of us inside there. And those other parts of ourselves want to get out. So say, for example, you have aggressive feelings towards somebody, but you don't want to express it. So consciously you're repressing that thought to fit in with society. But then it comes in the dream. So you have a dream about, say, your uncle has a beard. You like your uncle. But then he has the beard and all that in the dream, but he seems to be nasty and you don't like him. And actually what you actually find then is that he's representing a person who also has a beard, but you don't like that person. And you're angry at that person, but you don't want to deal with that anger. So that's what he's basically saying, is that desires, and desires doesn't necessarily mean I want to eat something or have sex. Desire as in, I'm scared of somebody, I'm lusting after somebody, I'm angry at somebody, I'm upset at somebody. I want to do something that I'm unfulfilled. These elements of desire, whether it's desire to have something or desire to be in the sense of being maybe scared of something or running after something or being upset by somebody, they're there. They're unpleasant thoughts and feelings. And they do come out in different ways in the dream, in symbols. So let's see what he says here. This approach to dream analysis is both intriguing and controversial. However, it's also highly subjective. Yeah, of course it is. Although we still don't know why dreams exist, neuroscience, cognitive. Yeah, I wouldn't be big into whole neuroscience, cognitive psychology. The problem with neuroscience people are usually very materialistic people who just believe everything is a brain and discharge and all that. There's a certain element in the sense, the truth in that your brain cleans off impressions of the day. So there is a cleaning mechanism where you're just getting rid of too much sensory input. And certain things are true, like if you sleep on your back, maybe the optical center in your back of your head gets stimulated, you have a dream. You take cheese before going to bed, you get a nightmare. And there seems to be some element of truth in that. And of course, you watch violent Friday the 13th or something before going to bed, you don't be surprised you have a dream of some guy with a big knife chasing you. So, interesting article. I think that we have to understand is that we have to take Freud in context. That, Freud was writing this stuff or coming up with these ideas going back around, 1895 to around 1935 or so. And so he's a man of his time. And so we have to appreciate his inputs, what he shared, his thoughts. But we also have to go beyond Freud. And I think, if you're just going to literally read Freud, and this thing's where populism or popular opinion of Freud is limited, because, most people learn about Freud through books on psychology, which are written by people who read other books by people who summarized Freud. And not many people have read the original Freud. I mean, I'm talking, if you do a psychology course, for example, a lot of people who do, say, a BA or BSc in psychology, and then a master's in psychology, even a PhD, they either haven't read the original Freud, or they've read the original Freud and haven't gone beyond it. So the average person, or even well-educated person, doesn't have a big perspective on Freud. He's just one character that came up in maybe first, second year of their psychology degree. So, but if you actually have an interest in psychoanalysis, and you look at Freud and the post-Freudians, there's even a book by a guy called J.A.C. Brown talking about Freud and the post-Freudians. It's an interesting book. You can see a thread. You can see that he's an originator of something, but you go beyond Freud. So if you look at people like Melanie Klein, Lacan, people like that, Even Carl Gustav Jung's going in a different direction, but again, it's expanding. So start looking more Freud from the symbolic elements that, he suggested things which are very interesting, but he was limited. If he'd lived longer, he'd probably have a more expansive viewpoint. Many people who came after him added a lot. I think at this stage, from a philosophical point of view, Jacques Lacan has made a big influence because Jacques Lacan was a structuralist, and he just adds this whole idea of symbolism, and you start thinking of symbolic elements, and then it opens up a whole new world, and that's why a lot of people will refer to Lacan from the point of view of understanding the nature of reality and human consciousness, and it's very expansive. So Freud is great, but he's a starting point, and there's a whole bunch of interesting people who came after him. And when we look at the Freudian theories, realize they're just theories, realize they're starting points, and add on to them, then I think you can find some very useful perspectives, while not being just stuck down to the opinion that Freud had in 1920 or 1915 or whatever that time is, or 1930, whenever he wrote those things. Okay, so, but in general, interesting article, raised some interesting points. Don't agree with them all, but I do agree with some. So that's it for today. Please like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time.